Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our online service for the Unitarian Church of Staten Island. I'm grateful to be with all of you this morning. Welcome from the comfort of your homes, from wherever you are and however you are feeling. Welcome into this virtual space. I hope you find a way to get comfortable in your own body, to rest and relax, and to enter into this time of community and connection. I'm the Reverend Emily D. Tarbert, and I'm speaking live from my apartment in Marble Hill, Manhattan, but in spirit in our, as you see, building. I'm grateful to be with all of you this morning. I begin our service with words from our hymnal, words from our reading, number 434. May we be reminded here of our highest aspirations and inspired to bring our gifts of love and service to the altar of humanity. May we know once again that we are not isolated beings, but connected in mystery and miracle to the universe, to this community, and to each other. So may it be.
And now we light our chalice. In the search for truth and the spirit of love, we unite in worship and fellowship. As an extension of lighting our chalice, we will take a moment to perform a Black Lives Matter chalice lighting, in which we will light a candle and say the names of those who have recently been affected by police brutality, knowing that we cannot say all of the names of those affected. We will light a candle for the life of Thelonious Ra McKnight, for the life of Kuku Christopher Fiafonu, and for the life of Alhaji M. Sao. May these lights be a symbol of our commitment to continue the work of racial justice and to proclaim that Black lives matter. And now, Kevin and Carolyn Clark will perform our opening hymn, which is number 344, A Promise Through the Ages Rings.
Through the ages ring that always, always something sings, not just in May in pledge-filled power, but in December's coldest hour. A note of hope sustains us all. All life is made of many things, bright stars, bleak years, and broken dreams. Can it be true that though all things there always, always something sings? The universal song of life, entombed within our deep despair, our pain seems more than we can bear. But they shall pass, and nature knows that deep beneath the winter snow, a rose lies curled and hums its song. For something always, always sings that
This is the time in our service when we invite you to speak aloud your joys and sorrows. If you're visiting with us for the first time, this is the time when you can introduce yourself. If you want to, you can tell us a little about yourself. You can write your joys and concerns in the chat below, the chat below your screen, or you can speak them aloud.
Good morning. This is Nima. I just wanted to let everybody know that my father's memorial will be this afternoon at 3:30. For more information and the login password, you can go to the email blast that's been going out from church. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nima. I'm happy to post the link to the memorial service in the chat after our service so that you all have it. I'm so grateful for the opportunity to reflect on the life and the legacy of Harvey, especially with you, Nima, and with your family. Thank you. Kathy says it's a joy to be here. It is a joy to see your face, Kathy. Thank you for joining us from, are you still in Arizona? Yes? Yeah. It's so good to see so many wonderful faces. Nancy, it's good to see you this morning. Thanks for being here. It's good to see your face. I see Rona. I see Susan Calvert. Hi, it's lovely to have you with us this morning. Please go ahead and unmute yourselves and share your joys and sorrows if you feel so moved.
Did any of them know Peter? Bill?
Hi, this is Sally. I don't know if any of you knew Peter Killen. He was a very active community member who passed away last week. And just in case you know, I wanted to let you know.
Long-term member.
Yeah, long-term member of Peace Action and the Staten Island Democratic Association. And, you know, he, it's very sad for his wife, Patricia. And I just also wanted to say that roses were delivered to the missions who ratified the treaty on the prohibition of nuclear weapons, the new ones, last week. And also there was the rally and march in like 15-degree weather came off with, it was really wonderful. We have videos and all kinds of things from it. So it was, I thought that the hymn, that was the words of the hymn were kind of perfect for what, for the Roses to Missions project.
And my question is, what was the name of the piece that Carolyn played this morning? Did you turn me on?
I need to ask Kevin to unmute 1 second.
Okay. There are actually 4 pieces, and it's from a book called Piano Calm. I don't know if you can see it. Piano Calm by Philip Keverin. I thought they sounded a little iffy.
It sounded good.
Like change.
It sounded really beautiful, Carolyn. Thank you for your prelude this morning.
Something like Cathedral Eglate. That's the impression I got, you know, as I listened to it.
Hi, this is Susan. I see there's a lot of Susans here, Susan Calvert, and I'm glad to be here, glad to be back. Thank you, Emily, for welcoming me. And my sister passed away this Thursday. It was the 21st. It was 3 months, and my sister's name was Jerry, short for Geraldine, and just remembering her today. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing her name. May Jerry's memory continue to be a legacy we live into, and her love continues on. Thank you so much, Susan, for sharing and for being with us this morning. Anyone else like to share what's on your heart or mind this morning?
Yes, I just want to say something. I have, because the weather's been very, very cold and I really haven't been going out, I decided to go through all my old letters and cards that I've saved over the years. And I can't believe I have letters from like over 50 years ago, from my sister when she was in summer camp, and when I was in summer camp, and she was like a little kid sending me letters. And I've been like remembering a lot of things that I forgot. So it's really, I'm really glad that I saved them all, because so many things I don't remember. And it's bringing back a lot of memories. So that's what I've been doing for the past freezing cold week. So
Thank you for sharing, Janet. What a blessing it is to go through all those memories and those cherished items. Christine, I see your hand is up.
Yeah, hi, good morning. It's good to see everybody. And well, yes, it has been chilly. I must say that I've been enjoying the brilliant blue skies, and it's rather still. There's not a lot of wind. So, you know, I was out walking whenever I can. And yesterday, my daughter and granddaughter and I were down Mount Loretto, and we got to see an eagle. We got to see seals basking on the rocks with their pups. We got to see a small herd of deer. And it was just a glorious day walking about. So it was cold, but like some folks that live in very cold climates say, there's no such thing as bad weather, just bad clothing. So bundle up and get on out, especially if it's sunny and bright and still and it's beautiful around, even if you stay local on the island.
Thank you for sharing the joy of the beauty of nature, from seals to eagles. Jennifer.
Hi, good morning. My name's Jennifer, and I'm glad to have the opportunity to step back on campus and do some of my final semester's work on the school's immigration clinic, and also learning about landlord-tenant law, which is ultimately going to become part of my career. It's a great opportunity, and I just want to share.
I'm so grateful that you're back and doing those things, and just blessings to you as you continue your journey. Yes. Anyone else like to share what's on your heart this morning? Rona.
Unmute.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
No. Yes. Okay. So first, I'm very excited. My daughter Alicia is coming to visit and bringing our 3-year-old granddaughter Volana with her. Volana's turning 3 on Thursday. And it's a great time. It's just a great time. She has thoughts, she can say them. She's got a lot of agency over her life. It's just wonderful to see a human go from a baby to a toddler. It's a great thing. The other thing that I wanted to say is I got scammed this week unsuccessfully, but I believed it for a long time, and my bank told me that I was being scammed, so I stopped my payment to them. I got an email that looked like it was from Con Ed, and a phone call that had a caller ID from Con Ed telling me that I needed to give them $1,000 or my electricity would be turned off, which was really crazy because I have auto pay, and on the website I had zero balance. But they were really convincing and really persistent. So just keep your eyes open.
I hear that, Rona. Be careful of scams out there. And I guess kind of on a note like that, by the way, there's lots of scams involving pretending to be a minister and asking people for gift cards. I will never ask you for a gift card, ever. Just know that. I will never ask you for a gift card. So just it's hard, Rona. And yet these are designed to try to hook anyone, anywhere, to scare you. So I'm glad that your bank caught it. I'm glad that you're okay and safe, and I'm sorry that it happened. And what a joy to celebrate in your grandchildren. Thank you for sharing. Anyone else? I see lovely faces. Virginia, it's lovely to see your face this morning. I love your pearls.
You.
Your pearls and your shawl. You look wonderful. Thank you.
It's chilly here, so I have to keep warm. And it's good to see everyone. And I'm grateful to be alive and functioning.
We are grateful for you as well. Grateful for
Thank
Bonnie and John Walker, Harry Hicks. It's great to have you with us. Suzanne O'Callahan, Katie, Stu Flynn. I might not name everyone, Ruth, but we're grateful to have you all with us this morning. Any last joys or sorrows to share in this time? If not, let us enter into a spirit of meditation and reflection this morning. O Spirit of life and love, thank you so much for the opportunity for us to gather together in whatever way, shape, or form that looks like. Thank you for the chance to share our joys and sorrows and things that are on our hearts. This morning, we lift our thoughts to those who have passed on, but whose memory is with us. Near and dear friends and family and congregants, like that of Harvey Rosenfitz, like that of Jerry, like that of Peter. These people who we are so grateful to have known and whose legacy of love continues both in our memory and in our lived action. We're grateful for the chance to lift up their names and share in the joy of their lives. This morning, we lift up our thoughts to those who are sick and in need of healing, families or friends, people across the world. We lift up our hearts to continued acts of violence, such as the hostage situation at the synagogue that happened last week. And we also lift up our hearts in celebration for the joys we share with each other. Joys like grandchildren, like continued blessings of learning, chances to see friends and family, new opportunities, familiar faces, or even shared memories we go through in our households. Even the sight of nature itself. There's so much to celebrate and be grateful for. And so for all of these blessings, we say, may it be so, and amen. I now invite Sarah Dolinar to give our reading for this morning.
This is a reading called The Transient and the Permanent in Christianity by Theodore Parker. It must be confessed, though with sorrow, that transient things form a great part of what is commonly taught as religion. An undue place has often been assigned to forms and doctrines, while too little stress has been laid on the divine life of the soul, love to God and love to humanity. Religious forms may be useful and beautiful, and they are so whenever they speak to the soul and answer a want thereof. In our present state, some forms are perhaps necessary, but they're only the accident of Christianity, not its substance. Such then is the transient, and such the permanent in Christianity. What is of absolute value never changes. We may cling around it and grow to it forever. The question puts itself to each person: will you cling to what is perishing or embrace what is eternal? This question each must answer for themselves.
Thank you so much, Sarah, especially reading the particular language of the 1840s. Thank you. The question of what will change and what will stay is as old as time itself. And as I read the old philosophical words of the famous preacher our church's founders were so inspired by, so much has changed. There are many who would argue that these words are irrelevant, especially in Unitarian Universalism today. Theodore Parker in his time was a revolutionary, an abolitionist, a transcendentalist. He was moving and shaking the foundations of our Unitarian Universalist faith. He was on the precipice of redefining what religion would be, well, forever. And now 180 years later, we see just how much has changed. The thesis of this work, however, what is transient and what is permanent in religion? It has captured my heart completely. Because religion is changing as we know it. And it will continue to radically shift in the coming years in ways we cannot predict. So from an old school at heart, Unitarian, I ask for your indulgence to go back in time to when Theodore Parker was preaching and better understand his context and the changes that he was facing, so we can better understand the changes that we are facing now. In the early 1840s, there were many movements on the rise in America. The abolitionist movement was not in its heyday yet, but it was slowly gaining momentum. And in full swing in the greater Boston area was a philosophical movement called Transcendentalism. You see, a generation before the Transcendentalists in the late 1700s and around the time of the American Revolution, progressive Christians were already breaking away from traditional notions about the Bible. Inspired by the Enlightenment period, various Christian movements, including Unitarians and Universalists, started arguing that human reason was essential for interpreting and living out the religion and the Bible. Instead of believing the inerrant word of God, the Bible became a text to be reasoned with, to use your human conscience. And rationality, therefore, was very, very keenly valued. Well, a generation later, reacting to this rationality were Romantics and the Transcendentalists. People who certainly valued reason, but instead of looking at reason calculatingly or empirically or scientifically, they followed the philosophy of Immanuel Kant and believed that every person had access to truth or reason intuitively. In essence, quote, the heart knows. Transcendentalists were frustrated by the very cold, almost logical, really, really boring sermons and the traditional forms of church and religion that stuck to creeds and formulas. These are things Theodore Parker said in his sermon were the transient of religion. Instead, Transcendentalists encouraged people to discover spirituality for themselves, to discover a relationship to God and nature for themselves, to return to that intuitive, quote, truth that lives in each and all people, or as Theodore Parker would put it, the permanent in religion. The sermon that was quoted was Theodore Parker's first really open break from Unitarian Christianity of the time. He essentially told a number of people at an ordination service that everything they were doing was wrong. That they needed to stop doing church the way they were doing church. Stop trying to write theology. Stop trying to prove miracles. Stop trying to invent new ways of doing the sacraments. Essentially, he said, none of it matters. What matters is the divine life of the soul, love for humanity, and love for God. This may not seem radical now, but in the 1840s, it felt like a smack in the face to several of his colleagues in the New England area. Churches that thought, because they had answered some of the calls of previous generations, that they were radical and progressive, that they were the face of change. It was a drastic statement. And it was one that lived in a moment of time that would be another evolution. An evolution of how people related to and understood religion and spirituality, especially in the American context. Because it wasn't until the Transcendentalists that you really had this push that you individually, you yourself, can go create a relationship, a spiritual relationship with God, with nature, yourself. Not needing doctrine, not needing scripture, not needing all of these other things. So now as I fast forward to the present, I think Theodore Parker would be shocked, if not hurt, by how much religion has changed now. Past anything he could have ever predicted. First, Unitarians and Universalists are no longer specifically Christian denominations. While we warmly welcome Christians to worship with us, Unitarian Universalists no longer have a creed. We no longer require a belief in God. The permanent that Theodore Parker routinely sticks to in his essay ends up going back to God, and that's no longer permanent in our Unitarian Universalist tradition. Instead, this is actually what feels like a natural evolution of Transcendentalism, that we invite everyone to find beliefs that are authentically themselves in this community, to really wrestle with what's ultimately true in life. We invite everyone to craft our theologies and philosophies of life together, sharing as a community filled with different people, atheists, theists, agnostics, seekers, who knows, people, seekers, all those in between. So when it comes to the ways of worship, a lot has changed from what Theodore Parker would have understood. And if we want to talk about forms, could you even imagine what the founders of our church would think about virtual church? Could they have even ever pictured a church online like this? I don't think so. So if so much has changed, why do I still feel like these words are relevant? Because I'm called to, like he did then, look at the shifting landscape of what's happening around us. Name what is going on and what is changing. And it's not really new. I think I've preached this to you before, at least in parts and pieces throughout my time with you, and I'm sure you may have heard this in several sermons even before I came to this community. The decline of the Protestant mainline traditions has been happening for nearly 20 years now. And just as it's disrupting the regular notions of religious practices, it's affecting Unitarian Universalist spaces too. In my time as minister in the last 10 years or so, I've seen, I've watched this decline, and I've seen the rise of the spiritually, quote, non-affiliated, or the nuns, N-O-N, according to Pew Research. And I've seen Unitarian Universalists wonder, how can we welcome people into our doors? Wouldn't we be the perfect place for this moment in time? Wouldn't our congregations be the places where people could feel like they could explore their beliefs and join meaningful community? And all the while we ask these questions, thinking Unitarian Universalism may have an answer for those who are spiritually unaffiliated. And in practice, our numbers aren't increasing. For just like mainline Protestant denominations, our own churches and congregations continue to decline in membership. And it's much more than how people feel about spirituality, right? We can look around our world and we can see this. Economic forces continue to make religious practice feel optional and nearly impossible to choose. Between the demands on work life, from most professions now needing either having to have multiple careers to be able to get by, multiple income households, or having work in professions that now expect regularly 60 hours a week instead of 40. Any shiver or sliver of time that is left for family needs to be coveted and protected. There's less and less time for people to invest in religious community. And when you think about the fact that any religious community really, maybe not a few, but most, depend on volunteer energy, are volunteer-run organizations, you can imagine just how hard it is to maintain in a life when you need to get paid to get by. All of this leads to an ethos that spiritual reflection is nice, it's meaningful, but who has the time for it? All of this was already true before the pandemic, and now with the pandemic, a serious reckoning has happened across the country. Both for churches to adapt to virtual technology to keep going, and in some ways, these new endeavors have welcomed even more people, made congregations and churches more easily accessible, and helped grow membership. But like everything else that was leading up to these past few years, people have really had to pare down on their commitments, have had to choose how to stay alive, healthy, and afloat, which essentially means less and less people attend worship. And it's harder to find worship meaningful if we're not together, embodied in person. So with all of these changes, both before and during this pandemic, what changes are being made in religious houses of worship? If we look around the United States, we can see congregations that are trying to change the times. Here are just a few examples. Dinner churches are now more popular, which are small groups of people who meet over a meal and do spiritual reflection while sharing dinner. There are many communities who've decided to stop gathering on Sundays, to either completely change the time of how the weekend is gathered or to worship on weeknights instead. There are some communities that are using their buildings as resource centers instead of places of worship. There are some communities that have completely embraced the virtual church and broken ties with their physical building. There are some communities that have decided to stop doing services altogether and to change the ways they gather from either classes or text messages or other kinds of community care. There are so many changes we can see happening around us. And just as Theodore Parker said, these things are transient. Just as he said that he doesn't worship in the same way people in the 6th century worship, we don't worship in the same way Theodore Parker worshipped in 1840. No matter what happens in the future, it will be different and it will change. Though gathering in buildings for worship has lasted 2,000 years, and I'm pretty sure it'll probably last another 1,000 more too. You see, how people gather and what they do together will change. but the fact that people gather and worship will not. People will never stop worshiping. It will not look like how we think it does, but it will happen. And maybe it's because I believe in Theodore Parker's words that there is this permanent true fact in our human souls, that the spirits and hearts of human beings will always be searching for the truth, will always be reckoning with our mortality, will always be searching and wondering about what is our role in this life. Our reverence and gratitude for life itself, the ways we care for others, the divine life of the soul, that will never be stopped. A love of that far greater than ourselves will never end in anyone's lifetime. For the human spirit will always, always find a way to search for answers, a way to live out questions, a way to bless and pray and wonder. And people will always look towards each other for community and for people to journey with. We can see examples of this even now. The emergence of art in the last 3 years feels like a cornucopia. The growth of songs and new writings and new poets. Nearly every single minister I know, including myself, is a poet in the last 3 years. The wealth of art, the wealth of songs, the hymns that are being written, the drawings, a call to old arts, things like baking bread at home, making meals, crocheting. Everywhere I look, there are these embodiments of spiritual practice and meaning making, and people coming together. People coming together to raise funds for disasters, people checking in with neighbors, making whatever needs to be made to create community. Religious forms may be useful and beautiful, Theodore Parker says. They are so, whenever they speak to the soul. But they are only the accident. As I wonder about the future of religion for the next 20 years, I wonder what will need to change and pass away to serve, to speak to the soul. How are we helping people connect to each other? How are we supporting each other? And what might need to change in this community? How will we gather in the next 5 or 10 years? How will all of us continue to feed each other's souls, continue to connect to each other, continue to show up and question and wonder and wrestle and share? As usual, I don't have any answers. But that doesn't mean the questions aren't important to spell out. Because the answer comes in living. It comes because you decide the future of this community. You do. You decide whether this community is important, how and whether it feeds your soul. You decide how we show up together, how we form our communities and committees, how we make decisions. You decide in the people we invite, in the social decisions we make together, in the presence of our community, and how we reach to our neighbors, how we leave space for questions. Together, you and me and all of us, we live the question. How do we gather? Why do we come together? How do we feed each other's souls? Because the human spirit will always need a home. This one could be yours. You decide. Where is there a dollar?
There we go. Now is the time in our order of service when we take an offering. We know it is the gifts of all of us that help support our ability to thrive and gather online. Links and instructions will be posted in the chat. You can mail us a check or donate to our PayPal giving page. Please give as generously as you can. Your offering will be gratefully received.
We are going, heaven knows where we are going, but we know within. And we'll get there, heaven knows how we will get there, but we know we will. It will be hard, we know, and the road will be muddy and rough, but we'll get there. Heaven knows how we will get there, but we know we will. Oh yeah, yeah, oh yeah, yeah, oh yeah, yeah, oh yeah, yeah. We are going, heaven knows where we are going, but we know within. And we will get there, heaven knows how we will get there, but we know we will. Oh yeah, yeah, 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 yeah.
Now Kevin and Carolyn Clark will perform our closing hymn, number 354, entitled We Laugh, We Cry.
Okay.
We laugh, we cry, we live, we die, we dance, we sing our song. We need to feel there's something there to which we can belong. We need to feel the freedom just to have some time alone. But most of all we need close friends we can call our very own. And we believe in life, and we have strength of love, and we have found a need to be together. We have our hearts to give, we have our thoughts to receive, and we believe that sharing is an answer. We seek elusive answers to the questions of this life. We seek to put an end to all the waste of human strife. We search for truth, equality, and blessed peace of mind. And then we come together here to make sense of what we find. And we believe in life, and in the strength of love. And we have found a joy being together, and in our search for peace, may we will finally see, even to question truly is an answer.
I invite you to join me in extinguishing the chalice. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. For these we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
Friends, people will never stop worshiping. The human spirit will always need a home. And we actively decide what that home looks like. We decide together to make this place a shelter for the human spirit, so that for generations to come, people will always have a place to come home to.